Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is a pre-spring season pod. We're watching OSU play basketball in the NCAA, the Big 12 tournament, and hoping that the Sooners can pull it out.
Next to last.
Yeah, that's right. Next to last. You know why? Because we are officially SEC bound in 2024. Right at the end of our last pod, that announcement got official, and so we're pretty excited about it. We're going to have a lot to talk about that and rule changes and some other things going on. But first of all, I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
Jay.
All right. So with the news coming down that OU is officially going to join the SEC in 2024, that has then completely unleashed all the speculation about who is going to be on the schedule, what is it's going to all look like. We got the final season of OU and Texas in the Big 12. We finally got a schedule out for the Big 12 last football season, which is kind of interesting. Let's talk about all of that. Let's start with the pods. Let's talk about these prospective pods that have been thrown out in the SEC. That are they calling them pods, or are they calling them more just like your lockups? I don't know. It's who you're playing every year, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to cycle through everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. In a 4-year.
I think they're
system.
calling them pods because there's not divisions of any kind.
Yeah, there's not divisions. It's just that whoever theoretically with what they got working, whoever is the top 2 teams, they're going to face off in the SEC title game year in and year out. OU, it looks like, is going to be, which we would assume, no doubt about it, will be Texas. But it also looks like it's Missouri and Florida, which was a bit of a surprise to everyone. Let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about who some of the other draws were that were of interest.
In terms of the Texas game, it sounds as though they're trying to maybe make that a permanent 2:30 game.
That's exciting. To me, that's awesome. What do you guys think about that? You don't like it?
I mean, I like it from a watch-at-home perspective, but there's lots of times that I've gotten up in the morning, driven down to the game, watched the game, and driven back on the same day. And it's nice for the 11 a.m. kickoff because I can leave the house at 5:30, be at the fair at 8, do my pre-gaming, watch the game from 11 to 2:30, get in the car at 3, and be back home by 6.
Well, it really is all about you and your weirdo
Exactly.
schedule.
So there's years that I stay down there, but I would say maybe more often than not, I'll just go down and back in one day. And
I would argue if you do
2:30
that,
changes it a little bit because then that puts me getting home a lot later.
But
in the evening.
I'd rather get home later than be up earlier driving.
But I get up early anyway. So.
Yeah, and that's
I would just never want to go up and down in one day. You're missing it. You're missing it.
It's
You're
not the
missing it.
experience. Yeah.
What am I missing?
You're missing the experience. You get missing yelling at Texas fans. You got to tell Texas they suck.
You're missing
and you
dinner
got to
on the
start
West End.
I'm doing that
before
the 3 hours before the game.
9 in the morning. You got to do it. You got to start the night
And then
before.
after the game, I do my smack talking on the way out.
You got to start the night before. Anybody can smack talk at the end.
2:30.
What am I going to do the night before?
Come on, man.
Hang with us.
Commerce
Don't-
Street's
yeah.
not a
Hang
thing
with
anymore.
us.
Don't
Hang
West
with us.
End isn't
Don't
a thing
insult
anymore.
me.
I'm not going down to Deep Ellum.
Oh, we're going to Uptown, and we're going to get some snooty little oil Texas boys, and we're going to show them what's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
2:30 is great.
I think 2:30 is phenomenal. I think that because I'm sick of having to arrive at the OU Texas game and awkwardly drink beer at really early in the morning, barely get there in time to yell at the Texas band.
That's how I know you don't watch European soccer, because getting up and drinking beer at awkward hours, quote unquote, that just shows that you're not a real sports fan.
That and my IQ. But other than that, so
Oh man.
no, I don't like having to rush through the pregame. I like to be able to enjoy everything, the pageantry that's going on, the OU and Texas fan interactions, and then make my way into the stadium and not feel like, all right, let's get the game going, to leisurely get this thing revved up. I think it's going to be awesome, and I think it's going to be great for the viewership nationally, for the notoriety of the game. I can see the advantage. I agree. When you're watching it from home, 11 a.m. is a pretty damn nice time to get your game over with. But 2:30 or a night game, and it's never going to be a night game, 2:30 is a time where you can really get a lot of national interest in. This is a game of the week type of situation.
Being able to wake up at, also just from a fan perspective, from someone who goes every year, being able to wake up at 9 as opposed to 6 after a long night beforehand is a
Yeah.
lifesaver.
It's huge.
That's
so,
a lifesaver. I don't even care
you
about
don't have the
I don't even care
anxiety
about
of getting to
home at
bed.
midnight. Yeah.
It says we're doing, we're partying all night. Like
Playing
last time we're
poker,
playing
sure,
poker,
all
we're
doing all
doing
the things.
crazy
It's fun stuff.
And then you're like, we got to get to bed because we got to get up, and I got to set 3 alarms to make sure I don't oversleep. And
Got to get
We've
kids
talked
dressed.
about this on the
Yep.
pod, though. One of the major downsides to the state fair is the people that show up that aren't going to the game. We've all had complaints.
it's
about
also a
100,000
feature.
extra people
I
that
know,
shouldn't be there.
but it's also a feature.
But now you
and
got
we'll come back to that in tailgating.
now
in a
you've
second.
got way more people being there because of the time frame. Because
I know. I agree.
there's
I
not
agree.
that many people there before 11.
I
that
agree.
are-
Move it to Jerry World.
that
I
aren't
agree.
going to
I
the
hear where
game.
you're going.
But now you're throwing in all the families that aren't going to the game. They're like, oh, we'll get there at noon.
Right.
And then you're having to deal with
No, I know.
2 hours of pregame.
And the
extra people.
congestion and the traffic. Now we
Yeah.
take the dart, so we're not worried about that part
Right.
of it.
Smart.
Same here.
But yeah, there's a pro and a con, and they're both the same for the people that arrive that don't go to the game. It does increase the pageantry and the atmosphere. It also makes it absurdly crowded and dangerous and
Impossible to get food and drink.
impossible on so many levels. So, yeah, I'd like to see the state fair decide they're going to figure out a way to make it logistically more accessible rather than think, oh, we're just going to continue as it is in a 2:30 game and 20,000 extra people.
Yeah, that
at
was my
kickoff
thought
is a
too.
problem.
Like, if they're fighting so hard with the SEC to get a set time for a game, be fighting just as hard with Dallas to limit capacity that day.
or change
It's a month.
the setup of the
It's a
thing.
month-long
Get
fair.
the stuff pushed away from the stadium.
Right.
Don't have these choke points of where everything spills out. It's not
Yeah.
impossible.
Quit
to do,
carving out
guys.
1/16 of the entire state fair for a Chevrolet test drive track.
Right. So there are ways to make that work, and I don't know. It's pretty frustrating. You're dealing with the city of Dallas, so that Dallas state government or city government, and yeah, that's probably not going to go anywhere. But
Well, all it takes is one bad thing to happen.
it's right, and then it's gonna be bad fast. So
Yeah.
that's a lot on the 2:30 kickoff. Let's talk about who we have though in the pod draw. That we did not get Arkansas. It looks like, and let's assume that's
Yeah, this
true.
is all speculation, but it
All
seems like it's
speculation.
pretty. It seems like it's pretty solid info. So OU, what we care about, Texas, Missouri, and the one that we were wondering about, it looks like it might be Florida.
Yeah, so I think that as a fan, it's easy to say Arkansas would be a great fit. There actually is some rivalry there from just a state perspective as well as a little bit of history between the teams. And it would be obviously fun and awesome to travel and go to that game every other year. We could easily accomplish that. We still probably we will still get that on every fourth year basis.
Yep.
But I would guess, and this has been pointed out to me, and you guys were mentioning this, the recruiting angle is a lot stronger with both Missouri, with the St. Louis area and the Kansas City area, as well as Florida, and obviously it's a very fertile recruiting bed. So establishing somewhat of a rivalry there. Obviously Florida in the last 30 years is a much stronger program than Arkansas. So the comparison now, if you went back before that in the Frank Broyles days, it wouldn't be a comparison in the other direction. But recently, and for every kid that's 18 years old and thinking about where to go to college, they have never imagined Arkansas being good at football, and Florida's always been really, really good. So all of that speaks to a natural new rivalry brewing potentially between two schools, Oklahoma and Florida. So I get where they're coming from there. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I could see the administration at OU angling for that type of an opponent. I would think that the worst draw would have been like a Mississippi or a South Carolina or even a Vanderbilt, where it's a nothing game. In two of those cases, a good chance you might lose, and that is very costly. If you win, it's not that much of a credit. Florida is a big name. I think another one that would have been really good would have been Tennessee. And I probably, if you had me push a magic button, I would have picked Tennessee over Florida if we could have. but I probably just wasn't possible to make that work out based on their. Who did Tennessee supposedly get?
Vandy, which is
Obvious.
cross-state rival, Alabama,
Obvious.
and South Carolina.
Yeah, so they get their traditional rivalries there. That makes sense. Now
Are
tell
you
me-
guys glad we didn't get A&M?
Yes.
I think I am glad.
Yep.
Yeah. I handling those freaks
Say no to Colts.
every 3 to 4 years is more. 3 and 4 years is more than enough.
My perspective is if we had gotten Texas, A&M, and let's say Missouri, then you're just stuck with like an old Big 12
Yeah.
pod of your own, which wouldn't have been
Yeah.
as exciting.
Yeah.
I know now
It's
you
like
still
didn't-
play a
it's
bunch.
like you're not integrated.
Yeah.
you
there's
still
no
have
new flavor.
six new teams that you're
Right.
going to play every year, but it still wouldn't have been the same. It'd have been too
Yeah, very regional.
the way it
too.
was.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with both of those sentiments for sure.
Even
So-
somewhat with Arkansas with the Big 8. I mean,
Yeah.
people remember that rivalry a
They
lot,
were-
which it's
They weren't in the Big
or
Eight.
not the
Southwest.
Southeast.
They were in the
But we
Southwest.
played. Do we play every year though?
No, we play
Just once in a while.
occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me about-
Arkansas even is what blew up the Southwest Conference.
That's right.
Yeah.
They went to the SEC.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
That's when the Big 12 was formed.
So tell me more about Alabama. Who did they get?
Bama, according to this, has Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU.
Pretty tough draws. Those all make sense. Well, two of those make a lot of sense, obviously.
Yep.
Tennessee's a traditional rival. Auburn is the intrastate rivals. Who want to rival Bama for supremacy and really can't. The LSU one's the one that's kind of a head scratcher. Boy, they're getting a tough draw. And then LSU gets a tough draw because LSU gets A&M, Alabama, and who else? Mississippi.
One of Mississippi's.
LSU. Yeah. So Ole Miss, A&M, and Alabama.
Yeah. So
That's a pretty tough draw.
That's pretty
Yeah.
tough draw, but especially the Alabama side of it. However, maybe that's the SEC being really smart, forward-looking, and knowing in a 12-team playoff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really just doesn't probably matter. You could easily be the third best team in the conference, and if your resume includes those schools, with where we think Tennessee's headed, where we think Auburn probably will get to or get back to.
Well, they've
then
probably
that's a
got the
pretty good
pods
resume.
set up to where it doesn't matter the week. The SEC has
Oh,
four
yeah.
premier games.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
but how about Auburn?
That's a great point.
Auburn gets both Bama and Georgia in their pod,
Yeah, that's tough. That's really
and
tough.
they're a game of 4, and with what usually should be a layup game with Vandy. But I mean, Alabama and Georgia both on the schedule
If
every
it's
year.
the third game out of those, you might lose that one too because you're so big.
Yeah, I mean it's exactly. So I mean that's tough. I think so. Florida gets both Georgia and Oklahoma. Like us with South Carolina. I mean that's
Yeah, you know they were going to.
that's not an easy draw in my opinion. So I mean,
But
we'll
it's the
see.
SEC. There's really not an easy.
Well, I mean,
draw.
if you base that,
No, I
well,
mean,
not
you
this
shouldn't
year
get
because we
one.
sucked, but
That's a good point.
that's 3 top 25 teams.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, other
Well,
than this year we
that's-
sucked.
Oh, there's a
That's
South
chance.
Carolina's on the rise.
I would call it. Well, yeah, South Carolina's on the rise, and a true long-term blue blood and a true current blue blood, and so and plus a top 25 team. I don't know if it gets tougher than Florida's draw.
Yeah.
You're almost guaranteed every team in the SEC is going to have 6 to 7 top 25 opponents.
Yeah.
Is how it.
It's pretty cool.
So let me transition to a question then. What do you think the non-conference scheduling would look like, in particular for OU, but also for these other teams?
Well, we
Knowing
know
they're
gonna
going to
play-
drop,
No, they're going to play Citadel.
they're dropping the fourth game,
Supposedly, they're going to be 9 conference games.
right? So assuming that,
Right.
and you just have 3 the way OU has been operating.
Yeah.
Do you think OU's always tried this approach where they have a premier attempted a premier game and then a mid-tier and then a real kind of cupcake?
Well, I think with the 12 teams,
what do you think will happen?
With the 12 teams combined with being in the SEC, I don't think there's anything to lose by having a premier out of conference game.
I think you're right. I agree with that fully.
Because
In fact,
if you run through the SEC or only have one more loss in the season, you're in. You're in
Right.
the 12.
Well, and I think you start seeing these. I think what we're moving towards in this super conference mindset. I think you start seeing a lot more SEC, Big Ten matchups, like for the non-con to say, hey, we're going to do these premier matchups with the understanding that it's
That would be a sick opening weekend of college football.
Yeah. So I mean,
Be amazing.
It'd be amazing,
yeah, and I mean it's funny. I mean,
especially if
this-
you lined them up. Sorry to overtalk.
No, go ahead.
If you lined them up,
yeah. One
top
after
down,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
plays 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, whatever. It'd be incredible start to the season.
yeah, I mean,
another. You
it-
could
it-
dominate the entire TV lineup.
It's looking like from what we've heard of the past week or so that the Big 12 is making moves to make the Pac-12 irrelevant. So, which will ad hoc still make the Big 12 irrelevant.
Well, I'm really proud of the Big 12 in their quest to be a really good mid-major, but we'll get to that in a second.
We'll see.
I agree with you, Jay. I, in fact, think that this opens up an opportunity with one caveat to have a non-conference schedule that maybe is top-notch.
Yeah.
The only thing you want to watch out for is you don't want to get your face kicked in 3 weeks in a row with tough games. So that'd be the only reason you wouldn't schedule Southern Cal, Ohio State, and Michigan or Nebraska, or whoever. But otherwise, that's very enticing because, one, if you're OU especially, that's going to be the talk of the preseason is look at the schedule they've got. It's daunting. It's amazing. It's going to be great lineups. We're going to be on prime TV the whole season. You might be the game of the week the first 4 weeks in a row if you did something crazy like that schedule. And then they're going to give you lots of credit. You win those games, and obviously you're golden. If you lose a couple of them, that's okay. You can make it up in the SEC. You just know what you have to do. Whereas in today's world, you're toast if you don't win every one of those games.
Do you think the luster would eventually fall off that kind of schedule though? Like it's really cool when you have a
think so.
Michigan coming into town or you're going to Michigan, but if every
I don't think
year
so.
you had a Michigan and a USC
I
and
don't
a
think
Clemson,
No, I think it would be.
you don't think it would get old?
No, to make a bad joke analogy, people who do cocaine don't stop doing cocaine. It's like every week would be the ultimate high. And there would be the only letdown would be when you have Vanderbilt coming to town.
And I think it eliminates what we've been frustrated with especially with the SEC with these quote unquote cupcakes that everyone says, and it separates Division I college football from everything else, which is exactly what you want it to be.
Exactly.
You want it to be this non-debatable thing where it says we have this elite product. And the best of the best are playing the best of the best week in and week out, whether or not it's a conference matchup or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if we're going and scheduling for our non-conference, going and scheduling an Arizona State or in a Maryland or something like a mid-level, quote-unquote, top 5 team with the big one like Ohio State or something like that, I think even then it's
So you
still
probably,
a win-win.
at the very least, I think you drop the Arkansas States, the Kent States.
I don't think so at all. I think it's the opposite.
I think you drop those, and the worst team that you play is a team like an Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I
with
think
a
it
name.
stays exactly the same way as it is now. You have a Michigan or Nebraska or a named team that you play every year, home and home, and then you play a mid-level team like a Tulsa or a Bowling Green or something like that, and then you have a directional school. Because with the 12-team playoff, you have the opportunity of if you run the table in your 3 non-conference games, and one of those is a named team, even if they're not a top 25 team, let's say that team goes 8-4 that season or whatever, it's still a quality win. And then you still gives you the opportunity to lose 2 SEC games and still make the tournament. I mean, the playoff. Whereas if y'all are talking
It is a tournament, yeah.
these crazy USC, Ohio State, Michigan setups, you lose 2 of those 3 games, and then you lose 2 SEC games, and you're out of the playoff.
Well, no, I know that, and I'm not saying we're actually going to have this amazing schedule of 3 blue bloods or something that you're playing. I'm saying that you're going to drop the directional school. I think that's where the disagreement lies. I think you should drop the directional school.
We're gonna have to have a different
I don't know if they necessarily will.
financial blueprint because those schools have adjusted their whole
Well, that's too bad.
everything on
Yeah.
getting a paycheck
And
to
that's
come
too
play.
bad. And that's a reason for us not to do it, to retain that money and then draw even I don't know what
Exactly.
the makeup is of when you do a non-conference game, what the breakdown is, but that's got to be when OU plays Michigan in a few years. That's going to be a huge television draw. That's going to be big money. We got emergency alerts coming in.
We got an amber.
Got an amber.
I don't have that turned on my phone.
So you don't help
Screw the
the
kids.
kidnapped kids. So
But here's the other thing is we've proven over the last decade that we will struggle with an Army or a Tulane or even Tulsa not too long ago gave us problems. I mean,
Well,
we've had issues with these mid-tier teams.
Look across the board, though, and there's mid-tier teams in those first 3 weeks who are giving everyone trouble. Army almost beat Michigan. I mean, you have teams that upset. Appalachian State beats Texas A&M last year. I mean, that's also the nature of they circled that game when it got scheduled 4 years ago.
To me,
and
that's an
all they've
argument
been
of why I
looking at.
want to play Michigan. Because if I lose to Michigan, I'm not a laughing stock on ESPN for the entire week and beyond.
Yeah.
And you'll
If
be
I
up
lose
for
to
Michigan.
Appalachian State, you're a laughing stock, and you probably have about the same amount of risk when you. Well, no, you don't.
you don't.
But you still get the virtually no credit for beating Appalachian State, and you lose money.
yeah,
on
but
that
you're not
game.
looking for credit. You're looking for a W on that side of the
Then
column.
then you better be
That's what
really
you're looking
careful
for.
about who you schedule in that position, because the Appalachian States of the world are too damn good. Oklahoma State is too damn good. You're going to have to really pick and choose who that is, and you need to go get a big name, either a big name school that you can lose to or an absolute zero. You need to truly get Missouri State. And that game is going to be a zero across the board in terms of interest, both from the fans attending as well as a fan watching on TV. And I think you sacrifice too
It
much
really
in
is
that.
hard to go to those games.
It's hard to get
It
excited
really
about.
is.
It's excruciating. No, it is. It's to go to one of those games at even 6 o'clock when it's
obviously-
The
90
only good
degrees.
part-
But
South.
only
obviously,
good
the
part
ticket price
is-
is extremely
Is
low.
the stress
And no
level
one,
is
the stress
low.
is great, and you get to see other players and blah blah blah. But the ticket price is exceptionally low, and the attendance is exceptionally low, and it's not on TV. It's on pay per view or it's on some bad TV spot.
That doesn't affect us in the slightest because we
Because-
go to games.
But no, we're talking about is it popular or not, and it's not popular. It's clearly not popular. It's for the typical fan of any caliber, whether they're an OU fan or just a college football fan, they're not interested in that game. I would rather have a schedule that is full of interesting games of one level or another.
I think
I want to
as-
schedule winning games and stress-free games. That's
Well,
what-
there just aren't that many of those.
Other
then
than-
you
other than the
definitely
one-
don't want us to join the SEC.
other than I want the one big-time opponent every year or big name.
well, you're gonna get
Nebraska.
about 6 of those starting in 2024.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I don't know. I would like to see us up the difficulty level to a significant degree.
If you just come up with your own hypothetical schedule, whatever it is, your SEC schedule that we're going to face, comparing and contrasting that with our schedule for this year, 2023 at home, versus what it could be in 24.
Remarkably
It's just,
different.
It's hard to even
Two levels of football.
fathom, to
Two
be honest.
different levels of football.
I-
It's
I mean,
like
you
practice.
potentially. I mean, it won't be this bad or this daunting, but to think that each week you have, okay, we've got Bama, and then we've got South Carolina, and then we're at Missouri, and then we come home and we've got Florida and Georgia. It's like, what is
It
going
doesn't
on?
end. That's great.
I know,
Awesome.
but it's gonna be
awesome.
it's gonna be wild because
And I can see, to Lucas's point somewhat, a coach among there's a revenue aspect, but there's also the athletic director, but definitely the coach is going to say, wait a second, at some point we've got to get a break in this thing, and especially if we've got a 12-team playoff where that implies potentially 3 games that you're playing in the playoffs. You might need to soften things a bit and say we need a real soft non-conference because we need to sprinkle in some breaks beyond just the one time
Yeah, the
that you get
expenditures.
an off week.
well, I wonder
And
too.
so-
I wonder too if it's been talked about. The traditional schedule is you've got your non-cons early,
Right.
and then your season starts. Maybe you just
Put some in the middle.
maybe
No,
your
I think so,
non-cons
for
are
sure.
sprinkled every third
Absolutely.
game, right?
And the
you're-
SEC does that currently with their 4th one, where they'll play the Citadel in week 11.
And
before the
November,
rivalry game, the week
And
before rivalry.
What I would suggest is kind of to the point you were making, suggesting that point earlier, Jay, about early matchups that dominate the TV schedule. I mean, imagine OU Alabama in week 1. And kind of what do you have to lose by doing that? Now, I could see if you want to get up for that game, or what if you said, okay, not that one, but let's do OU Mississippi in week 1. I'd rather play Alabama, honestly.
They
I'd
have
rather
done. I think didn't A&M play somebody first? Didn't they play a conference game like the very first?
The
It
very first
happens
game they do,
occasionally.
yeah.
I think
So-
they. I think
They might have played
tried-
LSU. Was it LSU?
I think they do a couple of those.
Yeah, no,
like,
they
there's
do.
like 2.
What if you did the whole schedule
year.
that way? What if you started to kick the season off with
Everybody
your
plays a
conference
conference
play?
game?
Marquee matchup instead
Marquee
instead of
matchups.
doing this stupid
Well,
like Atlanta kickoff stuff.
And I would rather it be a marquee matchup against Alabama rather than Mississippi. I want to circle that date all the way from the spring
Yeah.
and have the players focused on that
The
game.
downside is when you're starting a brand new quarterback.
Oh, sure.
That
It could fall bad for
But
you.
it could kill you
But
every
it would really
3
fall
years.
bad if you lose to Mississippi. In
But
the first
Alabama
game
could be
because you haven't
starting
gotten
a brand new
kinks worked
quarterback,
out.
too. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
exactly. It
whatever
could
it
go
is.
either way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting, and then you get to work in.
Well, plus
if you
the-
went lighter on the non-conference.
Plus, the talking heads would have just enormous buildup. I mean,
it's
Oh.
it's beneficial for ESPN and Fox both to have matchups like that.
it would be a
week
huge week 1.
Yeah.
And, well,
Instead of talking about 2 matchups that they have each year, you have
and actually, it doesn't need to happen as
8.
much in week 1 as weeks 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Where if you remember, those are just duds. There's not a good game.
week
on.
3 sucks.
Yeah,
It just
but
is
yeah,
so
week
weak.
3
Then
Week
you
three
turn
is
into
pretty
like
tough.
Nebraska against Northwestern and Dublin, and then you lose out on a home game because they've decided to make a neutral site
Well,
game.
let's not go to Dublin. I would say for many reasons
what a
you don't play your
terrible-
football
You wouldn't go
game
on that
in
trip?
Dublin.
I would go.
Oh, I'd love to go to Dublin.
It'd be like OU,
but it's
at
like what
A&M
I'm going to
No,
Dublin to
in
watch my
Spain.
football team in week
Yeah.
0?
No, let's not do that.
Absolutely
Let's not do
not.
that. That doesn't make sense at all. That seems like a very expensive way to
Figure
have
out
what
you
could have
to
been a
figure
game.
out your coach sucks
Your
at
coach
his
needs to
job.
get fired. Well, let's keep talking about this and transition to something I mentioned a second ago, which was ticket prices. I alluded to that. What do you guys think will happen to ticket prices in the 2024 season for season tickets at OU? That'll be the first year of the SEC. I suspect they're going to get more expensive. Now, you looked it up. How much are tickets right now for 6 games?
About $500.
About $500. What do you guys think? Round numbers, not knowing who the actual opponents are on the schedule, other than that it's going to be SEC and big matchups and there'll be a big name or 2 on there. Plus, it'll all be brand new stuff that's exciting. What do you think they're going to try to do down there at the OU ticket office?
I think the ticket price goes up a little bit, but not significantly, because we've heard over the last 3 or 4 years from Joe C specifically about how hard it is to keep selling out the stadium because of the options people have to watch at home. And the tailgating is sucked here, and they're going to have to get better than that for the SEC.
We're about
We've
to
all
talk
talked about
about
that
that, too.
But I don't think you can just raise significant ticket prices when you're having a hard time. There's no wait list anymore. They're having a hard time. They're putting these little mini packages together of discounted ticket prices for a 3-game homestand against West Virginia, Kansas,
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
and Baylor, let's say. And because they're not selling full season tickets like they used to, and like I said, there's no wait list anymore. So I think with what that is doing, I think they'd be hard pressed to go raising ticket prices, because you may lose 2,000 season ticket holders if you raise the price significantly, and then you're going to have to try to sell those as single game tickets.
Well, I think you're right, except you're wrong. So I think your analysis is right. I'm afraid they are not going to do that analysis. I think it is going to be like we've seen out of OU time and time again. And I can only speak to OU because I'm familiar with it. I'm sure they're just as bad at every other athletic department. But I feel like their business analysis is really, really poor.
It's a money grab.
It's not just a money grab. I'm okay with the money grab. I think it is a not understanding how to grab money attempt with greed.
Yep.
So I could talk on and on. We could fill an entire podcast with my views on how they should structure ticket prices for all kinds of events that they do. And I think we're seeing it in this year, in this season, with what apparently Porter has had to do or tried to do so much with getting students involved, etc. They've spent the greater part of 2 decades completely destroying what was a great student athlete or student environment at the OU men's basketball games. And I think they miss opportunities across the board in all the other sports of trying to build a fan base and get people into the seats. They do the math all wrong on all that. And I see it in football where they're just greedy. And I think they're going to be greedy. I think they're going to think they're going to rest on their laurels and think that they've got something that they can charge a super premium for.
Yep.
I suspect you're going to see ticket prices move above $750 for that first
Does
season.
our 2023 record affect
It
ticket
would.
prices?
It would. And so you'd want to, if you could, adjust for that. I'm saying, so that's a great point, Jay. I will say, I'm assuming based on what I think is the case in terms of where we're going to finish next year and the outlook beyond. So I'm going to say OU finishes 10-2 and in the regular season, and everything is looking more and more optimistic, and people are getting pretty optimistic. So that factors into the move from 500 to 750. But I think that even if we had a season similar to what we had, not as bad, but a little bit better, you would still see a major jump in ticket prices. If we do something crazy and we run the table next year and win the national title, let's just say hypothetically, I bet ticket prices are $850 or more.
Yeah, at least. I think I'm with you. I think any shred of a decent outcome of this season, even not.
Well, they jumped from 2000 to 2001 pretty significantly, if I remember right.
They did.
From back,
They did.
back
I think
in the-
demand was quite a bit
And that
higher
was
after
peak
that, though.
football. That was
Yeah.
peak OU football. They
And-
probably were right. to
Yeah,
do it
exactly.
then.
Yeah.
And they got right.
Probably knew what
got
they were
Yeah, because
doing.
it was like $300 for a season ticket at
Yep.
that point,
Yeah.
and then it jumped to $400, and then I don't know, probably 08 season and went up to like $500. It's been pretty static for
Yep.
the most part,
Yep.
other
Yeah.
than the donation prices.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking around 750 as well is what I'm anticipating. And I think you're right, Steve. I think it's sad, like, you know, he's done some great things, but Castiglione gets a lot of credit. He does not get enough criticisms for missed opportunities. The fact, I mean, you take OU basketball as the example. It took an outsider who was at not even a mid-major, a low-tier school at Loyola to come in and say, look, like, you guys need to be incentivizing things at this point to get people to come into the doors. Like you said, great student environments across the board, and it takes someone like that to come in and say, you guys aren't doing this right. Like, why is that not a point of concern way before this? And then you see the Board of Regents yesterday coming out and saying they're going to do basketball facility improvements and stuff like that. It's like, man, it's just, I don't know. I
yeah,
think
but they're really not. If you look at the numbers,
right.
they're hardly putting anything towards basketball because they still want to build
The arena.
the arena on the,
The
north side
Oklahoma
of
Live,
Norman.
yeah.
Right.
Keep it close to I-35 because they think that'll improve attendance. I don't think you might get.
I think it would improve attendance a lot. I think
I think you'll get maybe like 300 or 400 more people a game, but I don't think it's significant.
I think in
enough.
the evening, getting over to Lloyd Noble Stadium, Highway 9, etc., is a pain in the butt for anyone not in Norman already.
it definitely sucks, but
It
I just don't
definitely sucks.
think there's enough major basketball fans in this state. I mean,
I tend to agree with
the
this.
Thunder's attendance has gone.
But
way
if you make
down.
it in a whole, with restaurants surrounding it, and it's a plaza center area, it could be
I just
more
don't
people
think
go.
it will draw
I
that
still
much.
don't think it
I
does
don't think
either.
it'll draw that much. I have a lot of qualms with the entire plan there.
I still think 750 at least though for the tickets. next year.
Yeah, I think that's what they'll do, but I do think that's their game plan is they don't want to build to improve. They want you to want it so bad that you build the palace they want to build.
So what's that? $125 a ticket?
Yeah, but vary between games, right? Some a little higher, some a little lower. Real briefly on the basketball thing, I don't know why it's not even consideration. I'd like to see them put a new arena in the existing spot where McCaslin Fieldhouse is.
Yeah.
I think that would be a perfect spot for it. And if you feel like you need a bigger footprint, which I looked on Google Maps actually yesterday, Lloyd Noble almost fits where that McCaslin is. It's not that different in size. What you're thinking of is the ocean of
Parking
parking lot
around.
that's around it.
Which all
But
it is game
if
day
you
parking
need
for
it-
football like that.
Exactly. If you need it, there's a parking lot just to the east. You could move Jenkins and have it loop around that and have that arena and have a tremendous facility right there. I do agree with you, Jay. that it would not draw the same from Edmond and Oklahoma City, that a psychologically closer and not as much but physically closer arena on the airport, or right by the airport there, the
24th.
24th Street,
I-35
what
and
they
Rock
call
Creek,
it, the
whatever.
North Park, the North Park area would, but I agree with you, Lucas. I think the marginal increase after all the fizzle is done,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big. And I saw I got the survey like a lot of people did. I saw the prices they were floating out for those things. It was extraordinary.
Outrageous.
It was insane.
Really?
It was like every package, they're like, well, what if we did this, this, and this? What if it was this, this, and this? And I think, what if you took all those numbers and you divided by 4, maybe 7? You might be in the ballpark of where it's reasonable, okay? But anyway, I feel like it's the same point of view translates into tickets, and we'll see. But that's my prediction, at least.
I went to 3 basketball games this season, and they are a pain in the butt to get to, even though I live in Moore. And if it would have been on this corridor we're talking about, I-35-ish, I might have gone to one more game just convenience-wise.
Right.
But it didn't affect, I mean...
And
just
it's
because,
significantly
because there was
different for
one
you.
night when I was sitting at home and I was like, oh, the game starts in 30 minutes. Do I want to spend 20 of it driving to the game? Or I could spend, if the newer arena where they're talking about would be 10 minutes away, that might have affected my decision. And I can see where some people in Edmond and stuff, but like I said, I don't think it's more than 300 or 400 people per game.
But Edmond, it's not that big of a deal. If you think about it, that just dawned on me. For Edmond, that cuts off maybe at best 25% of their commute to the game. For you, it cuts off 75% of the commute because you're nearby. And so it's not going to. You're about as typical or as ideal of a fan as you could find for that.
yeah,
and
but
you're
with
part of
making
it's
the
time.
decision.
Part of it's
Yeah, but with
start
nobody
time, though,
going
too.
to the game also means that you move down Highway 9 easily, and you get parking easily, and you get into the stadium easily.
But they're also factoring in.
So you're saying if they did go to the game, it would be. I mean,
The more people that went,
back in
the
the day,
longer.
I went, and it was a miserable.
That's what I'm saying.
experience
The
getting
better
out of
you
there.
are, the more people that go, the
No,
worse it is to
I
get
agree.
over there.
The argument they're
winning
making
cur-
about 6 o'clock tip-offs on a Wednesday is it's hard from somebody that gets off work in Edmond at 5 o'clock to make it to Lloyd Noble
Right.
by 6 o'clock on
Right.
a Wednesday night or whatever, Tuesday night.
True.
And that would knock 15 minutes off of that, essentially,
Yeah.
not having to travel on Highway 9. I get that, but like I said, I don't
agree.
think the demand is big enough that you need to spend the money, which is why they're trying to get the City of Norman's money.
Which
Or
I
two
do-
birds,
which
one-
is my biggest problem
and
with
not-
all
Two
of
birds,
it.
one stone
Yeah.
too. If the family could get food and go to the stadium right there, versus
Yeah,
you
but
kind
that
of have
food
one
is
or the
not
other.
gonna be cheap food.
Then the food that they're cutting out is going to be, they're not going to be selling as many nachos in the arena because people went to Torchy's or whatever next to the, wherever they're going before the game.
Yeah, I get what they're getting at. I just think they've got the typical grandiose dreams of what the entire thing's going to bring, and I think it's like it always is. It's incredibly inflated. The running joke in sports economics is that any of the projections that they make in any of these analyses divide by 10. Every time divide by 10. It's that the impact, any of it, it's always that to that order of magnitude less. But anyway, that's off on a different topic. We'll see where that develops. We did get new facilities announced, some pretty significant increases to football facilities among other sports, and that was pretty interesting. $175 million going to the football facility, which is going to, I guess, be in the place of the existing track, is my understanding. Is they're going to replace that, and we'll now have 100-yard long practice fields, and all of that's a pretty big addition. And apparently, it's going to be like as nice as anything in the entire country. That's pretty interesting.
They were showing, I saw some video of Florida's set up, and they were doing, like a video walkthrough of their facilities and showing how much each of these things costs or the overall cost of it. But everything I saw in that video is stuff that was reactionary to what we've already done in our football facility. So literally they're showing these cold tubs. We've got cold tubs. They're showing this locker room. It's literally like a knockoff. Everything I saw in Florida's was a knockoff of what we've done in the last 5 years.
Already.
So what are we doing on top of that
I
that
think
warrants
it's,
$175 million?
I think it's I don't know that so much like new innovative products per se or anything, as much as it is like
The space.
a flow and a congruent team, coaches, everything. Where it's
Holistic,
I think right
all
now it's
within the
just.
I mean, they're
system.
showing video game stations and pool tables. We have video game stations and pool tables.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
They've
I
got
don't think
like
they were
but
showing
the lighting
that
to shoot
say,
the recruit stuff. We've got the light, like literally everything I saw in the Florida video looked exactly like the same thing.
But
we
I
built
think
5 years ago.
right now what it is like so there's a certain amount of time that you can do football stuff with your players, and I think like our cafeteria is here, and the practice fields are way over here, and so you've got this whole transition time that maybe that doesn't sound like much. That it took 15 minutes for the team to move from their
That's meaningful.
pregame snacks
Yeah.
to the football field, but if you do that for 120 practices a year,
Yeah.
now you're talking about you've lost 40 hours of practice time.
Right. I
So
can see
I
that.
think the flow of just that whole thing is to optimize. That's probably the best word. Is to optimize all the time the coaches, or the limited time
The
the
coaches
coaches
have.
have with the players.
I think that's part of it. I think there's also a efficiency of the Everett Center was a big addition for what we had in terms of indoor.
Yeah.
Our indoor was a joke before
Yeah.
that, and this will be a next step up to having just complete holistic practice facilities all in one place with all those other accoutrements there. And honestly, I think, Lucas, a big part of it's marketing. It's the newness factor. It's the
50% of it
pizzazz.
is
Absolutely.
what are the recruits seeing when they come
Yeah,
to
Yes.
campus?
yeah. This is brand
Yeah.
new. I mean, you almost could like
What shiny thing can I show you?
I agree with that.
like
Like, literally,
put
we
new
heard
paint on it and say it's brand new to the new recruits, and
we
they
heard
go, oh, it's brand new.
last year that the recruits were talking about the experience of coming to OU was unlike anywhere else, based on the facilities and like the what when they showed you around all the football stuff, they were like, "This is so much better than all these other places that are recruiting me." What's changed in a year that we need to? I mean, it's not.
I don't know that it's changed in a year as much as you just want to stay ahead of the game.
I know it just seems.
I know.
It seems so crazy.
I'm very sympathetic to what
But
you're
Georgia,
saying.
no, Georgia. But here's
I-
the deal: Georgia's going to keep doing it. Alabama's going to keep.
It's an
doing
arms race.
Oregon's going to
Yeah,
keep
I'm not
doing
saying
it.
we don't need to do it
Texas,
at some
A&M.
point, but I think 5 years from now would be the time to start the build, because
Yeah.
it
I
literally
just-
it seems
but
like
I bet
everything that
you're
people are
behind.
talking about we should be doing
That's
Yeah.
the deal. I bet you're
is
behind.
stuff
agree.
we literally just did.
I just hope, I have no doubt, kind of in agreement with what you're saying, that they're making a ton of multi-million-dollar mistakes. And I bet they're pissing money away. I bet they're lighting money on fire.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to a good cause. I mean truly destroying resources. But let's hope that they're minimizing those losses in this effort to try and stay ahead. And they're a little bit intelligent about how they're building this out so that it's the best of the worst. It's like the cleanest dirty shirt in terms of decision making here, whereas some schools are just blindly throwing their wallets at things in a way that's got, like, OSU announced a lot of new facilities. That's a lot of money, and if they can find the money to do it, that's great. But at some point, you just don't have an athletic department budget revenue-wise that justifies that.
Right.
I think at least maybe we can justify it, but I'm very sympathetic to the idea of they could easily be trying to compete in an arms race where it just absolutely is burning up money just for the sake of doing it. And I just I've heard talk that they're going to redo the coaches' offices. Really?
Yeah.
Why? How much time do they actually even spend in those
Yeah.
offices?
Well, Brent Venables'
Is that just
office
a
is
trophy?
basically a house.
I don't
So-
understand it. So
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. You may know this, probably don't. Do you know where Brent Venables' house is?
No, but ironically enough, I had a buddy who was out at his house 2 days ago
Really?
fixing his
Are they built?
home generator. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's just south of Lucas, really.
South of where?
Him, not too much.
South of? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I had no idea, but when I was taking Elise to school the other day, I was going down. What is it? 36.
36, yeah.
It was taking her to dropping her off at Mass, and so I went all the way down to what turns into Santa Fe. Is that 48?
Yes.
And there's a house under construction that's a giant compound, and it is like got a wall around it, and it is
On the
fortress
what
on
is
the-
it? Southeast side.
No, it's like if you're going north on that street,
Yeah.
48th, I guess. Is that 48th or does 48th turn to the western? Anyway, if you're going north on that street that turns into Santa Fe, it is on the east side of the road, almost to Tecumseh.
Yeah.
And it is a fortress. It is somebody is building one heck of a fortress out
Yeah,
there.
I think I
so I
know-
don't know.
I
I,
think I
was
know
just
what you're
wondering if
talking
that I saw that and I'm thinking, who is building that? I think, oh, that's Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, it looks like a big like villa type
Yeah,
of house.
it's
yeah.
Well, he better not get too comfortable.
Oh, you're crazy.
God.
You're totally crazy. Well, let's talk about something in terms
can't
of
do that
getting
tonight.
comfortable. And this will be like a step 2 in the criticize the administration. So I was out at dinner with some friends of mine, a professor at OU and his wife, and we were talking football. They're both from LSU. And I've heard this before, but I was really getting the word from her that we are woefully unprepared for the tailgating that is about to come our way. And so to hear her talk about it, and we've seen glimpses of this, and you guys have been out to SEC territory recently. I've been there before. I've seen Alabama and what they do. So chime in on this, but she basically says we don't have the capacity and the infrastructure. We don't have the hotel rooms. We don't have the general place to set tents up. We don't have the RV hookups that you need for all of it. And I worry
Because
that
of how well the SEC travels.
because of how well they travel. They're going to bring tens of thousands of people to these games, and it is a total event. And one
And
of
the first
points,
4 years is going to be intense
they
because
said,
everyone
and they
wants
said
to be
that
here.
they said if it's you win or lose in those first 4 years, and if you kind of piss it away and people have a bad experience, they're going to write it off and they're not going to come to OU anymore. So I don't know if that's how true this is, how much of a risk it is. I will say, we all know they have done a very bad job at maintaining tailgating. They've pushed them into a corner and made it some weird sterile environment where you order everything from OU catering and all that. To me, again, it goes back to the greed factor. I think they do a lot of stuff that is around the idea of how can we make a buck off of it. I feel like they've got a lot of voices speaking to them, and one of those voices is not the tailgating fan. They've got the campus corner merchants. They've got the stadium people and both the merchants as well as the people responsible for the stadium. And all of these voices are saying, we need to make sure that we get everything we can get out of this, and the tailgating is a competitor. I think the tailgating is a complement. I don't think it's a substitute. And I think we need to make it flourish, but they haven't done that. And they've really relegated tailgating down to something that's really negative over the last 5 or 6 years at least. So how worried are you guys that we're not going to compete in tailgating? And what was your experience when you went to Tennessee and other places?
I think Tennessee was fantastic. It's really hard for me to gauge because I'm not a big
I think there's
tailgater here.
I think there's two different parts to the question, and something we may not have talked about earlier when we were discussing this before the pod. Is infrastructure is definitely one thing. Experience may be completely different, right? So what we were talking about earlier was the experience that OU provided, especially when Tennessee came into town, and Lucas and Jay, you all were mentioning you guys got a lot of good feedback when you went to Tennessee, and everyone said, they loved the experience, couldn't have asked for anything better. So that's one experience thing. I think to Steve, to your point with your conversation that you had, I think infrastructure absolutely has to be a concern, for sure. If the masses are going to come out as we think they might, and probably will. I mean, OU's a destination. OU's a big name to go visit. I definitely don't think we have, for example, the RV hookups. There's the one over on Porter,
There's
and
several
that
more
park is
hotels now than there
tiny.
were even just a year or two ago, but
Well,
I
there's
still
also,
don't know if it's
they've
enough.
also lost a couple.
Yeah,
So they
you
lost the one over off of Main Street
Yeah.
and the Sooner Legends, and now maybe they'll get the old Sheraton, whoever's
You
renovating that. They got two guys that have been working for like 50
You've got
years.
Ed Noble
renovating
Parkway
that.
with what, like 3 or 4 hotels right there.
Yeah, you've got the Noun, obviously.
The Noun, which is
charge
gonna-
there's
gazillion
You got the
prices.
ones by Crest. There's like
There's
3
two or
hotels
three new
over
ones
there.
over
Yeah,
there
yeah,
by
you got
So-
and those are the
Airport.
big ones: the Embassy Suites, the Hilton Gardens.
But you got to
You
think
do
too,
have
you
more
might
of
have
that.
some OU fans who don't usually travel in from out of town who are
That
going to be
will
fighting
want
for
to
those
do it.
rooms as well.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have people staying in Oklahoma City and more where they have to. So, that is a concern for sure. I think infrastructure-wise, I don't know I mean,
So I
do have my
remember-
doubts for sure.
I
think
don't
it's-
know. I don't know what it's like at these other places. Like when I think about the RV Nation and all those folks that do the RV thing, I know that's always been a big deal. My neighbors used to do it. They lived in South Oklahoma City and they'd RV down for the OU games and stay at the duck pond, and they'd do it. And it was an entire subculture of group that gathered, and they loved it, and they had a great time. And then OU kicked them out of the duck pond parking lot, and they were irate, and it just. It really was a slap in the face to them. They did go down to the Lloyd Noble, which is where they pushed them down to, but they would tell you it killed some of it, and it never recovered. And you still have people that do that. I don't know. Based on what I'm hearing, you're going to have to use the entire Lloyd Noble for the RVs.
But that's what sucks, though, is like, which I guess maybe that becomes its own experience. Maybe if
Right.
it becomes as big as what
Right.
the anticipation is
But it's so far
indicating.
away.
Exactly, you're not in the atmosphere.
No.
right?
When I go to an away school, which we've done tons in the last couple of years, I don't set up my own tailgate. I park somewhere and then I go walk through the campus
Right.
and see all the
Other
other people, all the
tailgates.
home people's tailgates.
Right.
which we
So-
don't have.
Exactly,
Which
do
we
not
don't have, which is the big problem. But I don't think that people are looking to come from Auburn or Mississippi or whatever and set up their own
Set up their
tailgates.
own.
They're
As
going
much
to
as
be
participate.
They're going to be looking to participate. Like when we go to Tennessee and they had a big open field and we stopped at one. Hey, come over here and hang out with us. We'd hang out 30 minutes, and then we go. Okay, we're going to go walk around, and you make it, 100 feet away, and these people. Oh no, you got to come over here and hang out with us. It was the same in Ohio State, and that's not even. I saw somebody talking the other day who said that Ohio State's probably the closest to an SEC atmosphere that isn't in the SEC essentially, and I can say the Ohio
can see
State
that.
situation was a lot similar to Tennessee, and
Ohio State was awesome.
there's they had setups in the parking garage where people those 10 by 10 tents or that you can buy at Academy now are nothing. They're like $100 with a school logo or whatever.
Right.
So those things should be everywhere on campus, and we have got to get to a point. The Lindsay Street stuff, obviously they should do that again, but there's so many buildings on campus that you can't get a car close enough to where you can park your car, set up a tent, set up your satellite dish or whatever, your
Right.
coolers and all that. There's just not this
So you could
campus.
do
Yeah,
it-
I think as a traveling
campus
fan, you
isn't
want
set
you
up
want
for
to
that.
take your Uber close to the stadium, or you want to park somewhere on campus
And just go.
walk
Just
around
go.
and go.
Right. Well, to
And the
me,
North Oval.
The opportunities would be the North Oval,
And the
where
South
you can
Oval.
do that, and the South Oval. Now you'd have to open up what used to be a road and now is not a road, but you could do it. You could
Yeah.
do it on a Friday.
The
Say
duck
we're
pond.
organized time. We're going to come in, stake your ground, set up your thing, move out, because you can pull all the way through and loop the way they used to. So you could get it done if you're willing to set
Yeah.
up the infrastructure for it. So those are two great big lawns.
And that's what's sad
They
is
could
you could
accommodate
fit
a lot of
all of
people.
OU's tailgating that exists right now
In
into
those two
one of those
spots.
two spots.
With-
One of
the
those
two
two spots.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, that's sad.
You could let the duck pond, not RVs, but just
Yeah.
set up tents in the duck pond again.
all of those parking lots.
Give
over
up the
there.
parking lot that's on the
Well,
east side of the stadium.
All the north side of the
which-
stadium.
but they're going to lose the stuff on the east to the new facilities that they're going to be building by the
Right,
track.
right.
So you're going to lose some of that. But the parking lot that's over there on next to the field house.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally just park cars there. That could all be tailgating.
Yeah.
But then where are you going to park cars?
Well, you know what infrastructure is not ready is if they keep it the way it is Campus Corner. Campus Corner
Oh,
with
yeah.
that influx of fans who don't
Yeah.
have anywhere to go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the stadium.
well, that's
And it's
that's
not
obvious.
either.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're right. Campus Corner.
But Campus Corner, if we get the number of fans that we
I
anticipate,
can't wait to
it's
hear.
going to be a mess.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear SEC fans complaints about concessions.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I hope they get echoed a lot
I
so
do
that we get some
too.
changes made. You know,
I hope it's almost national news how bad the concessions are.
It's shameful, dude.
sit in your seat and don't get your ass up. It's problem solved. That's what I do. I walk into my seat, start the game.
I love your.
You have a
walk
lot
down
of you have a
after
lot
the
of
game's over.
convoluted
Problems.
views on how to solve things.
So, is this a business then? There is some space available on Campus Corner. Let's go, and we'd have to start now because it's the city of Norman. And let's rent a space, go through all the process of getting our liquor license, and we will just open up and 6 games a year. come SEC time, and we will just make bank right there,
and
and
we
we'll
would.
close it all down and be done the rest of the year.
I mean, why can't we just do it in the front of the house?
Well, because we don't live in a free country, and so we'd have to have all these licenses and everything. Well, I don't know. It's interesting, and I'm not.
Just set it up like a speakeasy.
There. Ooh, I like where you're going with that. That's nice. Secret handshakes and codes.
Yep.
Well, I think that it's going to be real interesting, the entire experience, but the tailgating in particular will be good. And I hope we put out a really good product as far as that goes. I hope we are a real nice, hospitable, awesome venue for people to come to, because that's a richness that we've lacked somewhat. And if we can get down back to that point, I think that would be really, really good. Let me mention something, speaking of richness and what we're losing. I was in Stillwater this past week and talking with some colleagues who are OSU fans. It's really weird to get their perspective on stuff and how they feel differently. And what's a little surprising to me is just how bitter they still are about this entire thing and how jaded they feel about it. And I understand where it comes from, and I understand to a degree what their beef is. But to me, it's also a little unrealistic, and I don't really understand how they've lived in this bubble where they thought that we were in this together, or necessarily would be. And in fact, it gets back to something I've said. I think Oklahoma State's losing their identity. I think they're about to suffer, or in the beginning stages of suffering an identity crisis, because their identity is the anti-OU and the team that is trying to beat OU. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to get their perspective. It's going to be very fun to watch what happens in the coming year with our last season in the Big 12, especially with them and playing them, and then what transpires after that. Anything to add about any of that?
How much construction are they doing to their stadium?
I don't know, but
Enough to not have a spring game.
To just not have it at
who
all?
doesn't have another spring? It's the second time in like 3 years they haven't had a spring game
Yeah, they didn't have one.
in the COVID year or thereafter, right?
I don't know. It's embarrassing.
I think
It's
this is 3 out of
ridiculous.
4 because remember
Yeah,
they
maybe
didn't
you're
they didn't
right.
have enough offensive linemen to have
That's
a scrimmage
right.
last year, right?
Yeah.
Or the year before. There was the COVID year they didn't do one. Then there was the year that they didn't have enough offensive linemen to have one.
Because they had COVID
right.
or
And
something.
then now
and
there's
then
this
now
one.
this whatever this excuse is just construction.
Yeah.
OU was doing construction when they were replacing the artificial turf with natural grass. They went to Norman High and did their spring game.
Well, we were doing
And Toby
construction.
Keith broke his leg at that
We were doing
game.
construction 2 years ago on the south end zone.
Yeah, and we
or on the,
yeah, that's
on the
right.
north end zone.
And we still
blocked
had it
the whole thing
in
off.
the middle of construction.
OU fans, we would go watch the spring game on a field
The rugby
without
field.
numbers painted on it or anything.
Yeah, let's just travel out to the far reaches
Yeah.
of Fairview County and mow a wheat field
Yes.
and let's do it. That to me it speaks volumes about where you are with your program, and that should be an embarrassment that you're not going to have a spring game.
Yeah, if they said we've taken all the seats out of Memorial Stadium, it's literally standing
It's
only.
standing room only.
Okay, 35,000 people are going to show up.
Exactly. They absolutely would. I mean, I don't know. It's just, you can't, how do you not understand where you really are in this world as an Oklahoma State fan, I feel like. And many of them do, but so many of them don't. So many of them are in this delusion of who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And you just cannot be surprised that you're not seeing consistent success when you do things like this. I mean, it'd be different if you were in the midst of where they were 30 years ago as a program, where they were not able to put together 2 winning seasons in a row. They're in their absolute halcyon years. This is the best time of OSU football's history, other than maybe the earlier period of Mike Gundy. And yet you can't have a spring?
Yeah, Eli, our friend Eli Letterman from the Tulsa World put it pretty good in a tweet. Says he's covered both OU and OSU. There's 1,000 differences between Norman and Stillwater, or as Lucas wants to refer it to, Stoolwater. Both are wonderful places, except they're not. One program has a 30-minute meet and greet on April 15th. The other program is going to host 60 to 80,000 fans with recruits on hand for a scrimmage 7 days later. Hard to miss the gaps. So I think it's
great.
just stark, right? And that's what's funny is like back to your original statement around the fact that OSU expected this just to be hey, we're gonna hold hands throughout this whole thing and do all this together, right? Like no, there are 1,000+ differences between us, and one of us is bigger and the other one is not, and the bigger one's gonna move on with their life, right? So and for whatever reason, like you said, I think OSU is in the midst of some identity crisis or is on the cusp of one, and something like this to signal to your fans, hey, I don't care enough to
it's a crucial time
to show you this.
It's a pivotal.
Yeah.
It's an inflection point. You need to make a decision about what kind of product you're going to put out in the new Big 12.
Yep.
You are jockeying for positioning in the new Big 12, where
In a league that's ripe for the taking.
Well,
right?
it's
to
ripe
be
for
the,
the taking.
It's become so Mike
Absolutely.
Gundy, though. It's become so Mike Gundy with this whole cloak and dagger approach to, I don't want you to know anything. It's what Lincoln Riley used to do, except Gundy's taking it to the next level where Gundy has an opportunity to go showcase who he thinks or the quarterback competition that's going to ensue and everything else, and is not taking. He's too scared to do it.
how do your
that's all it
players
is.
take it seriously?
Exactly.
How do recruits take it
Yeah.
seriously? If
That's an
you're doing that?
opportunity for players to get up and say, "This is my first chance at competition to go earn a spot potentially, or show you that I want a spot."
I know that Oklahoma's not up against a lot of going head-to-head with Oklahoma State for recruits occasionally, but you look at a school like Baylor or whoever, Kansas State, who might be.
Yep.
What I would use this as one of my key points to say, Mom and Dad, I don't know what Mike Gundy and those group is telling you, but they didn't have a spring game. They're not serious about football.
yeah. How serious are they taking this?
Your son has the potential to make it to the NFL. I don't think that you are being taken seriously if you go to Stillwater, and we don't know what they're going to put out there on the field. In fact, he may be looking to transfer after a year anyway. Why don't we just short circuit that and just come here and not waste any time in Stillwater? So that, to me, it just is easy for negative recruiting. I don't know. It's just a very.
That's why they're in the
confusing
50s and
situation.
60s in the recruiting every year.
It's true.
But I mean, I think they are at a greater risk of even dropping
bigger
off more
fall off.
significantly than that.
I think so,
I think
too.
they are one very not good season away from completely losing the complete handle on that program as a whole.
Might be a true implosion with other teams getting really serious about football. We've talked about it before with the NIL and how this is an opportunity for schools like Oklahoma State. They are not taking advantage of it. Schools like Baylor and Texas Tech and SMU are taking advantage of it. And so you start to go down both in conference and similar programs out of conference. They are looking competitively very uncompetitive.
Well, you look at the downfall of an older coach like Gary Patterson, a legend at TCU, has statues put up of him, or a statue put up of him before he leaves the program. What's he do the year before he leaves? He doesn't host a spring game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
point.
and I'm not saying those two things are completely related, but it's like, it's not even the fact that, whatever Gundy has in mind. Is Gundy just too lazy to put something like that together? Like, doesn't want to say, I want to spend the time to make this work and put in the effort that it's going to take to bring in these recruits and have a full weekend? Like, it's just it's mind-boggling. You cannot operate like that in this day and age of college football.
I mean, they can play at Stillwater High School.
Right.
They can play.
Oh
they
my
can play at
gosh.
Tulsa Union.
And
Yeah,
going to
even
play at
Tulsa
Stillwater
Union
High School
Stadium
would be a
holds
pretty cool
40,000
atmosphere.
or something stupid, doesn't it? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a low D1 college.
You don't need a
Yeah.
lot. You just
Yeah, you only need 20,000 seats at the most.
Well, I mean, and think about the marketing aspect. Take it to Tulsa. Take the product to Tulsa for
Yeah.
a spring game as advertising. Try to get people in Tulsa
Yeah.
fired up about traveling
The
the
new
short
Big
distance
12.
over to Stillwater to watch some games. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know. It's not just OU who's missing on the marketing aspects of things and making big mistakes. I did in that conversation. This will be the last thing I have to say about Oklahoma State and that group, but they made the same comments of criticism about their basketball program and the atmosphere of it, and how when they were younger, similar age to me, maybe a little younger, in one case that they were lining up and going to games and making their schedule so that between him and a friend, they always had a free slot. So whenever the game fell, they could wait in line to make sure they had seats to get into the seats they wanted to have, and they'd wait in line for hours for a ruckus atmosphere. And I know I've had other friends that went to Oklahoma State, and I know that was just a big deal about going to the basketball games. And now it's nothing. It's the student experience is just, it's not a priority. It's not of interest to them.
Yep.
It's an afterthought. So it's happening kind of everywhere. I guess there's misery in company or whatever. But let's transition to one other topic that I wanted to cover with rule changes. So we've got a few proposed rule changes, everything to do with getting the game to move a little quicker. The two that really kind of don't matter is we're not going to have a defensive penalty in the first or third quarter. We'll move to the second or fourth quarter. And you can't call consecutive timeouts, so you can't ice a kicker.
Which is in the NFL right now, right? They've moved that to the. I'm pretty sure that's an NFL
right.
rule
I think that's
right
right.
now.
And which is funny because I think it actually has been proven to be a little bit of the reverse case that
Right.
icing actually helps kickers, especially the consecutive ones. But the two that are interesting would be the running clock after first down spot outside of the last 2 minutes of the half or in the game, and then running clock after an incomplete pass. I think I like both of those rules. So one is consistent, or both are consistent with. Well, no, the first down spot is consistent with the NFL.
Yeah, incomplete is not.
Is not. I'm fine with both of them. I don't really have a problem with running the clock once it's spotted.
I don't know if I don't mind the first down one for sure. The incomplete pass one, maybe it's just the way we run our offense.
I agree.
I don't think I would want that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I can't even pinpoint a reason right now. I'd have to go
Well,
and
I
think
think
like a
one reason
specific.
would be we've had trouble both under Lincoln Riley and in this current administration with Levy and company of getting plays in.
Yeah.
And so if we're having a running clock after an incomplete pass,
Yeah,
I worry for
we're in
how many
trouble.
plays you can
Yeah, but
get
we
in.
also might accidentally run clock.
Run the clock out. Yeah. Exactly.
It might help us.
Right. No, I think I think something just feels off about
Yeah.
not stopping the clock on an incomplete pass. Maybe just because it's
'Cause that's-
just been that way.
It's always been that way.
I just
So it just feels strange.
and I just
I mean, it's
I
a dead ball.
yeah, it's Why are we going?
Like when you run
it was
the ball
a play
and you
that
get
didn't
tackled,
work.
the clock keeps
So
running.
essentially the
But
clock
when the
wouldn't-
ball hits the ground.
Yeah, when would
that's
the
a
clock
dead ball.
stop?
clock wouldn't stop.
When does the clock stop?
So it would other than the last.
It
2
just
minutes,
goes?
wouldn't.
Yeah,
Well,
see, I don't-
It stopped. Well, it's just like out of bounds. Now they changed that obviously several years ago, where the clock would start once they spot the ball.
Ball spotted.
So in all these cases, when they spot the ball, the clock will run. I think it's something we'll get used to, but I do tend to agree the spirit of the game, if you will, or whatever, is a little bit strange with running the clock.
I mean, that-
or stopping the clock.
Yeah.
Or not stopping the clock, running the clock after the incomplete pass.
I mean, everybody talks about how the NFL does it right with the length of games and how they always end at the right time and all that stuff. And the stat that I heard them on, it was a podcast I was listening to, and they said that these rule changes, essentially between the college game and the NFL game, it's like 17 minutes difference on average, which it seems like it's way more.
That's a lot, though.
It seems like an
That is more
NFL
than
game
you
lasts
think.
3 hours, and a college game feels like it lasts 3 hours and 40 minutes or something. But on average, it said it was a 17-minute
17's
difference.
a lot. On average, that's a big gap.
I don't know.
That's a pretty big gap, especially in the course of a college football day.
That
when you're
didn't seem as
sitting
big to
there
me because
after 3
there's
games,
lots of
that's
NFL
45 minutes.
Well, the college has way more scoring than the NFL
Right.
on average. So to me, 17 minutes didn't seem that different when you've got games that go, 65, 35 or whatever. Because in the NFL, you rarely see scores over the 30s. I mean, sometimes you'll have a 42 to 20 something game, but for the most part, NFL games, both teams are under 35.
I feel like
So
it would
17
be.
minutes didn't seem like that.
I
much
feel like it
when
would
you
be
factor
I
too
think it's
quick
more than
though.
you think.
I enjoy. And 17 is a lot in my opinion. I think that's a pretty big. And
even
for-
with the scoring differential.
for
Well, I think that probably explains it.
for
but
for
but it's
passing
still a
teams
gap.
as well. For passing teams as well, like Big 12 games that we've been exposed to. Some of these games feel like they're excruciatingly long. I do feel like though, with all the passing that does happen, especially within this conference or even this day and age of college football, it would it would feel I'd have to see it. I don't know. It'd be fun to do a test, I guess. But I feel like if you run the clock after an incomplete pass, I feel like that game would just zip by. I feel like it'd be so fast.
Well, at least initially, until teams get used to
and
it,
it normalizes
because
it. Yeah.
it'll take several years for offensive coordinators to figure that out. It
But
will go fast.
I think my deal is they're trying to speed up the actual gameplay of the game.
course of play.
But I don't think that's what makes the games long or feel long. It's the commercial breaks.
That's
And
a
the,
good
well,
point.
and
So-
it's the inefficient reviews.
But I mean, I think we're gonna
That's
get
a really good point.
we're gonna get a larger percentage of time relative to what we were getting of commercials versus gameplay.
may make it worse. That's a great point. In the
The
perception
game
may
to
make
me,
it worse.
the between the whistles of football isn't too long for me.
I would agree. That's
I don't
that's a
even
really
get
good
enough
point.
of that. My problem is when you go to the stadium and it's 98 degrees out and you see that freaking guy walk out with his stand that
2 minute
says
and 30
Thankfully,
second
we
clock.
now have times.
That's a
though.
good point.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
I mean, that's only been like 3 years in the making. Previously, it was you just sat there and you didn't know when the hell they would come back from commercial.
But
That
that's
was
a,
true.
it's a,
That
that's
was-
a
that
crazy
was
long. It's a
miserable.
crazy long
Yeah.
3 minutes in the
It
90
is.
degree heat.
It is. Well, and
And
that's
got
awful.
and then
that's
you've got
awful.
the stadium trying to entertain you in the stupidest
Oh,
ways.
oh,
and
and don't even get me
you just-
started
right.
on the,
But I mean,
the
those
music
3
that's
minutes,
blaring at me at 9 billion decibels. But no,
and then you
you're
have someone
you
right.
had
call
2-minute
timeout out of
commercial
the
breaks.
commercial break.
It
if you had
is.
2-minute commercial breaks
Yeah.
and kept the game the way it was, it would be perfectly fine.
And that's its own special kind of purgatory. But even watching at home is painful when you're trying to get into the game and all of a sudden I'm looking at another set of commercials. And when are
But
they
at
going to end?
least, and I watch more games at home, OU games than you guys do.
I go to the games.
I go to games too.
I go to a lot.
I
of
go to
them.
all the games. Yeah.
I don't go to all, but there's just it's different at home. You can get up, you can go pee, you can go do whatever. You're not restricted. Like when you're at the game, and you're
No,
like,
I know.
"Oh, do I want to go pee?" Like,
It's awful. It's
I don't
awful.
think so.
But that's a great point that you make. That the tedious part is when they're not doing any kind of
Is
football
when there's no
whatsoever.
football. Yes.
I'm not worried about I'm never and this past season
There's
aside,
never too many snaps of the
I'm
game.
never
in the football.
saying, "Oh my God, I wish they'd just get up to the line and hike that football." Like, no, I'm like, what are they going to do next? Let's figure this out. Where are we down in distance? Yeah,
I think they're just
That's
trying to pull a fast one on us.
But that's the
I-
thing. But that's the thing
that's a
too. Like
great
in between
point.
play, like I enjoy those in between play. Like
Yeah.
like
What should they
in
do
the
next?
stand coach type moments. Like I'm
Yeah,
a
I
driver.
have I agree.
I like
I have
that.
never been
Yeah.
like, oh my God, snap the ball. Like I'm bored. You know, like today.
What's
Because
happening here?
Because you're inundated with where are we out in the field? What's
Yep.
the down and distance?
Yep.
Why did he do that? What should we do next? And by then, you're about ready to snap the ball.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I had not thought of that at all. That's a great point.
But they're just shortening the actual football experience.
Yeah.
Well, Connor, you brought up the review thing, so let me throw out two hypothetical rule changes. Should college football implement the NFL's rules on reviews? Should we just full scale go to you have to challenge, and you get so many challenges, and if you win it, you continue your challenges? What
So
do you guys
straight
think?
NFL.
Straight NFL.
I think the college refs are too
That's-
often
That is
incorrect.
exactly
that
correct.
too. I
They're
thought of
so
that too.
bad.
It's so
that you
bad.
cannot
Like
do
we
it that
see,
way.
we see so many overturned calls in the
Yeah.
in the league.
I
It's just
agree.
You
I
can't-
thought of it too when I
Yep.
wrote that down. I thought, oh no, I don't think college refs can keep up with
I
it.
do
Yeah.
think there should be some additional accountability on the coaches to make those decisions. Like, but at the same time, calls are so often missed. I
Well,
feel like. You know?
what if it was just, I don't know, scoring plays always get reviewed and
They
are
always do.
reviewable.
Turnovers always get reviewed.
And turnovers always get reviewed, but anything else, it has to be a coach's challenge. Then you wouldn't have the what we find to be kind of a meaningless stoppage of play in the middle of nowhere. They're like, come on, it doesn't matter.
They need to take the
Yeah.
blueprint that the XFL is running and do the official. Like, there's some calls that are so clear and obvious that they spend way too much time on, in my opinion. I mean,
When it's 3rd and 10 and you're reviewing a 3-yard incompletion,
yeah,
what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing?
Exactly. I mean, and it's I do ask myself a lot. Like, I don't know how they used to do it in college football before review because these calls are so often missed. Like, it's interesting.
we pulled our hair out.
I
and
kind of
we-
like.
we.
I guess I'm a purist. I
We yelled
kind
about
of wish you
interception
just.
that happens.
You
Had to roll with
You
it.
appreciated the
He
margin of
stands
error.
very-
Yeah, I think I do. I think I appreciate. I just could be getting older. I appreciate the margin of error.
You know, honestly though, I think what happens
Only
is,
because I hate the delay. I hate how on one drive
See-
there could be 3 replays. You're just like,
what I
come
think
on,
you have
like-
to remember though is back in the old days, it was they didn't have review to bail them out. And we had bad calls, no doubt about it. We also didn't have high def TV, so we didn't know how bad they were. But I think honestly, the level of officiating was better. And what you get, it's the in economics we call it the Peltzman effect. Seatbelts make people drive more dangerously. So what
You get the safety net.
yeah,
You get a safety net of the review.
Yeah, it's very much proven. And so what happens is you get instant replay bails them out, and we don't demand as much of officials, and you get sloppier officiating. So I was when they first did a instant replay in college football, I was real excited for it, and I still am a supporter of it. But I think the level of officiating has deteriorated to almost offset the benefit of the instant replay. And so, yeah, I don't know. If we went back to no, I'm not saying we should, but if we went back to no instant replay, you might actually get a situation where we're going to demand so much of officiating that we get a higher quality product there. And yes, you're going to get occasional bad calls. There's just going to be bad calls, and you move along. It's sort of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. This is not a perfect formula that they got right now where we're sitting there watching a guy walk across or trot across the field to look at a screen that he has nothing to do with because it's being reviewed upstairs. And he's going to sit there and we're going to get some, call about whether or not the guy was out of bounds at the 40. And it might have been the 42, and who cares, and where's that 3 minutes of our life back? So I'm going to give you a different one.
Or a time limit on reviews.
Which
At
is what
least.
the NFL has. They have 90 seconds, right?
Because there's times, man, you're just sitting there like,
It's forever.
what
Like
are
10
we
minutes.
doing?
Legitimately, sometimes 10 minutes.
Right.
Because they supplement those reviews with TV timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time, it's supplemented on top of each other. They're not running in parallel.
A
It's
conspiracy theorist
crazy.
would say they're intentionally making bad calls so they can get more TV advertisements
Yes.
in.
It's crazy.
So here's another one. This comes from a guy I follow, Zevi Moshowitz, and I'm just going to completely copy his. I really like this. I've been frustrated with college football overtime, and he said, "How about this to make college football overtime better? Continue with the more traditional way we used to always do it, which was 25-yard line and go. None of this go for two." None of this forced nothing but 2-point conversions after the second overtime stuff. Back to the old ways. But the rule is no team can kick a point after touchdown or field goal to tie a game. You cannot kick to try and tie the game. So if you score first, you get the ball first, you score a touchdown, that's fine, you kick the PAT. If you get the ball first and you're stopped, you kick a field goal, that's fine. But now the next team, if you kick that field goal, cannot kick a field goal because all that would do is tie it. They have to try for the touchdown. Or if you got the touchdown and you got the PAT kicking at one point, they have to go for two.
So it's one overtime.
Yeah, or you go for two if you think you can get it, and then they have to go for two, obviously, but you probably wouldn't do that. So it's not necessarily one overtime, but
You
it
both
makes
have to keep converting.
it makes you
don't get the stupid 7 overtime BS.
Yes.
That is basically
which is happening one way or another.
Yeah.
You're either getting it by everybody keeps going and kicking the extra point, or we're doing this new world where we go for two, and now we're running every 2-point conversion in the history of that offensive coordinator's brain.
I'm completely down with that.
I liked it too. I thought it was pretty snappy.
That sounds so logical that the NCAA wouldn't think
There's
about
no
it.
chance in hell they'll do that.
So
All right, anything else to cover? We're going to have some special guests coming up. You guys are going to want to tune in for some of these guests. We're going to get Eli back on the show, but we're also going to get a surprise special guest, we think. We're going to work on some content leading into the spring, including the spring game. We're going to be together for the spring game. We'll probably try to pod right around that. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
April 22nd?
April 22nd, that's right. Anything else to cover, guys?
I think that's
Until
it.
next time, Boomer.
Sooner.